Hey guys, tonight we step back to the early 1990s into the life of Pablo Escobar at Hacienda Nápoles. You'll see what it means to wake to distant dogs and measure whether the real danger is the sound or the sudden silence after it. So let's begin. You wake to the sound of dogs barking in the distance. Your eyes open slowly, adjusting to the darkness of your bedroom at Hacienda Nápoles. The air is thick, humid, pressing against your skin like a warm hand. The ceiling fan rotates lazily above you, barely moving the air. You lie still for a moment, trying to place what woke you. Then you hear it again, barking, hollow and distant, echoing off the hills that surround your estate. You sit up slowly, the silk sheet sliding off your chest. Your wife sleeps beside you, her breathing steady and undisturbed. You listen more carefully now. The barking comes from the east side of the property, somewhere beyond the main compound. But that doesn't make sense. You had all the dogs relocated years ago, moved them closer to the central buildings where they could actually be useful. There shouldn't be any animals that far out. The sound continues. 3 sharp barks, then a pause, then 2 more. You feel your pulse quicken. There's something about the rhythm that feels wrong, almost deliberate, like a pattern, like code. You reach for the pistol on your nightstand, your hand moving automatically through the darkness. Your fingers find the cool metal, and you notice they're trembling slightly. Not from fear, exactly, from recognition. You've heard barking like this before, in other places, other times when things went wrong. The sound stops abruptly, too abruptly. One moment it's there, the next it's gone, cut off mid-bark as if someone flipped a switch. You sit in the silence, gun in hand, listening to your own breathing. The quiet that follows feels heavier than the noise. You whisper to yourself, barely audible, silence is more dangerous than noise. It's something you learned years ago, in the early days when you were still learning the rules of this business. Your first safe house, the one in Envigado, before everything got complicated. An old man who worked for you told you that silence means someone's listening, someone's watching, someone's planning. Noise you can track, silence you can't. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feet touching the cold marble floor. Your wife stirs but doesn't wake. You wonder sometimes if she's really asleep during these moments, or if she's learned to pretend, to give you the illusion of privacy in your paranoia. You stand up slowly, your back aching in a way it didn't used to. You're 43 years old, but some mornings you feel like you're carrying the weight of a much older man. You walk to the window, careful not to make noise. The curtains are heavy, imported from Italy, designed to block out light and sound. You pull one side back slightly, just enough to see out. The grounds of Hacienda Nápoles spread before you. Perfectly manicured lawns, the zoo compound in the distance, the main gate far beyond that. Everything looks normal. The security lights cast long shadows across the grass. The palm trees sway gently in the night breeze. There's no movement, no sign of disturbance. But the absence of the barking now bothers you more than the sound itself. Where did it go? Why did it stop so suddenly? You think about the estate's design, how you built it to be untouchable. The walls are thick enough to muffle screams. You know because you've tested them. The security system is state-of-the-art, designed by an American who used to work for the government before he needed money more than he needed principles. Every entrance is monitored, every approach is covered. This place was supposed to be your fortress, your sanctuary, the one place where you could breathe without looking over your shoulder. Yet here you are, at 3 a.m, holding a gun because of some dogs barking in the distance. You remember when you first bought this land. It was 1978, before the money really started flowing, before anyone knew your name outside of Medellin. You stood on this same spot and imagined what you could build here. A kingdom, a paradise, a place where the rules that apply to everyone else wouldn't apply to you. You've spent millions making that vision real. Every brick, every tile, every piece of furniture was chosen to send a message. Pablo Escobar has arrived, and he's never leaving. The barking starts again, and your whole body tenses. This time it's coming from a different direction, northwest, near the stables. But that's impossible. You were just looking out that window. There was nothing there. No dogs, no movement, nothing. You move to the other window, the one that faces the back of the property. You pull the curtain back and stare out into the darkness. The stables are barely visible in the distance, just dark shapes against the tree line. You see the security lights, but they seem dimmer than usual, or maybe it's just your imagination. The barking continues, steady now, insistent. You count the barks without thinking about it, an old habit from the days when you had to pay attention to signals, to coded messages delivered through sounds and patterns. 3 barks, pause, 2 barks, pause, 4 barks. Is it random, or is someone sending a message? You try to remember the old codes, the ones you used before radios, before cell phones, when you had to rely on sounds and lights to communicate across distances. But your memory is foggy, clouded by years and by the late hour. Your wife turns over in bed, murmuring something in her sleep. You glance back at her face peaceful in the dim light. She's managed to sleep through everything, the trials, the manhunts, the bombs, the death threats. You've always admired that about her, the way she can close her eyes and disappear into sleep while your world burns around you. Or maybe it's not admiration. Maybe it's envy. You haven't slept properly in years. Even with the pills, the whiskey, the exhaustion that should pull you under, you still wake up multiple times every night, alert to sounds that might not even be there. The barking stops again, and this time you're ready for it. You hold your breath, waiting. 10 seconds, 20, 30. It doesn't return. You stand at the window, gun in hand, staring out at your empire, and you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Not fear, exactly. Uncertainty. The sense that maybe, just maybe, you're not as in control as you thought you were. You built this place to keep the world out, to create a space where silence meant safety. But tonight, the silence feels wrong. It feels bought but not owned, like a loyalty you paid for but can't quite trust. You remember all the people you've paid over the years to ensure quiet. Judges, politicians, police officers, journalists, an entire network of people whose job is to make noise disappear. Every time someone got too loud, started asking too many questions, you made a phone call. Money changed hands or threats were delivered, and the noise stopped. It always stopped. But what if silence isn't permanent? What if it's just rented and the lease is coming due? You think about the last time you felt truly safe. It was years ago, maybe a decade. Before the government declared war on you. Before the Americans got involved. Before your face ended up on wanted posters and magazine covers. Back when you were just a businessman with unusual methods, not a monster in the public's imagination. You look down at the gun in your hand. It's loaded, as always. You keep it there specifically for moments like this, for the middle of the night when paranoia feels like wisdom. But holding it now, standing in your bedroom in your fortress in the middle of thousands of acres that belong to you, you wonder what exactly you're protecting yourself from. The barking, shadows, memories. You walk back to the bed and sit down on the edge, the gun resting on your lap. Your wife's breathing continues, steady and peaceful. You listen to it for a moment, trying to let it calm you, trying to convince yourself that everything's fine. But you can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. The barking felt like a warning, or a message, or a breach in the careful silence you've constructed around yourself. You close your eyes and try to trace the feeling back to its source. When did you start associating silence with safety? When did quiet become something you could buy, something you could enforce? You remember the early days when you were young and hungry and willing to do whatever it took to climb out of the poverty you were born into. Back then, noise was everywhere. The streets of Medellin, the markets, the arguments, the music, the life. You didn't mind it then. You were part of it. But somewhere along the way, as you accumulated power and money and enemies, silence became valuable. Silence meant no one was talking to the police. Silence meant no one was planning against you. Silence meant control. And now, at 3 a.m, standing in your bedroom in your paradise, you realize that silence might mean something else entirely. It might mean isolation. It might mean that you've pushed the world so far away that you can't hear it coming for you anymore. The estate was designed to be untouchable. You made sure of it. When you bought this land and started building, you brought in architects from Bogota, security consultants from the United States, engineers who'd worked on government facilities. You told them what you wanted. Walls thick enough to muffle screams, sight lines that gave you warning of any approach, rooms within rooms where you could hide if everything else failed. They delivered. Every wall is reinforced concrete, covered in plaster and paint to look elegant but built to withstand assault. The windows are bulletproof, custom made in Germany. The doors are steel cores wrapped in expensive wood. The whole place is designed to look like luxury while functioning like a bunker. You think about all the people you've paid over the years to ensure quiet, not just the construction workers, though you paid them well and made sure they understood the consequences of talking, but everyone else too. The neighbours whose land bordered yours, you bought them out or paid them enough that they didn't mind the noise, the trucks, the helicopters landing at all hours. The local police, monthly payments that guaranteed they'd drive past without looking too closely, that they'd ignore any reports or complaints. The journalists in the regional papers, enough money to keep your name out of the headlines, or at least to frame the stories in ways that made you look like a benefactor instead of a criminal. The priests, donations to their churches that bought you Sunday masses dedicated to your mother, that turned their sermons into endorsements of generosity and community support. Everyone has a price. You learned that early, and once you learned it, you made sure you could afford everyone's price. The barking feels like a breach in that contract. It's a sound that shouldn't exist because you paid for its absence. You sit on the edge of the bed trying to reason through it. Maybe it's just wild dogs, animals that wandered onto your property from the surrounding countryside. But that doesn't fit. The estate is fenced, patrolled, monitored. Wild dogs don't just wander in. And even if they did, your security team would have reported it, dealt with it, before the sound ever reached your bedroom. Unless they didn't hear it, unless the barking is only in your head, you press your palms against your eyes trying to clear your thoughts. You've been under a lot of stress lately. The government has increased pressure, the Americans are pushing harder, and some of your oldest allies have started to distance themselves. Maybe your mind is playing tricks on you, creating threats where none exist. But even as you think it, you don't believe it. The barking was real. You heard it clearly. Your wife sleeps beside you, unaware of your turmoil. You look at her in the darkness, her face soft and peaceful. She's managed to maintain some kind of normalcy through all of this, some ability to close her eyes and escape. You wonder what she dreams about, whether she dreams about a different life, a different husband, a different version of you that chose a safer path. You've never asked her. Some questions are better left unspoken, some truths better left buried beneath the routine of daily life. You remember when you first demanded absolute quiet. It was 1985, after the explosion that killed Judge Tulio Manuel Castro Gil. That wasn't your operation. You were against it, actually. Thought it was too visible, too provocative. But once it happened, once that line was crossed, everything changed. The government declared war, the Americans got involved, and suddenly everyone in your organization was a target. That's when you realized that silence wasn't just valuable, it was survival. Every loose word, every careless conversation, every boast in a bar could lead to an arrest, an ambush, a death. So you instituted new rules. No one talks about business outside of secure locations. No one uses real names on the phone. No one keeps records that can be traced back to you. And anyone who breaks these rules, anyone who makes noise when they should be silent, disappears. At first, it was just good practice, but over time, it became something else. An obsession. A need. You found yourself demanding silence in all aspects of your life, not just the business. The servants in your house learned to move quietly, to speak only when spoken to. Your children learned not to run or shout when you were home. Even your wife learned to modulate her voice, to save her arguments for moments when you seemed most receptive. You created a bubble of quiet around yourself, a space where the only sounds were the ones you approved. And for a while, it worked. It felt like control. It felt like power. But now, sitting in the darkness with the echo of barking still in your ears, you realize that every person you silenced was one more ghost added to your collection. Every time you made someone disappear for talking too much, for knowing too much, for being too much of a risk, you added weight to the silence. And now that silence has substance, it has presence, it feels less like protection and more like burial. You stand up and walk to the window again. The grounds are still empty, still peaceful. The security lights cast their steady glow. Everything looks exactly as it should. But something's wrong. You You can feel it in your chest, in the way your heart keeps racing, even though there's no obvious threat. You wonder if the barking is just ghosts learning how to speak again. All those people you silenced over the years, what if they found a way to make noise? What if death isn't as quiet as you hoped it would be? And you shake your head, trying to clear these thoughts. You're being ridiculous. Ghosts aren't real. The dead stay dead. The barking was probably just wild dogs or a security drill you forgot about. But even as you tell yourself this, you don't move from the window. You keep staring out into the darkness, waiting for the sound to return. Waiting for confirmation that you're not losing your mind. Waiting for some sign that the world is still the way you've constructed it. Still controllable, still yours. The silence stretches on. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 15, nothing. You finally turn away from the window and walk back to the bed. You set the gun on the nightstand and lie down, pulling the sheets over yourself. Your wife hasn't moved. Her breathing continues its steady rhythm. You close your eyes and try to sleep. But even with your eyes closed, you're listening, straining to hear any sound that breaks the silence. The air conditioning hums. The fan rotates above you. Somewhere in the distance, very faint, you hear an owl calling. Normal sounds, safe sounds, the sounds of a quiet night in the countryside. But underneath it all, just at the edge of your hearing, you swear you can still hear it. The faintest echo of barking, like a memory that won't fade, like a ghost that won't rest. You open your eyes and stare at the ceiling. Sleep won't come. It never does. Not really. You'll lie here for another hour, maybe 2, listening to the silence and wondering what it's hiding. And tomorrow, when the sun comes up, you'll tell yourself it was nothing. Just a bad night. Just stress. Just the cost of the life you've chosen. But deep down, you know the truth. The silence you bought isn't permanent. It's rented. And somewhere, somehow, the lease is coming due. You walk barefoot through the hallway, the gun held loosely in your right hand. The marble floor is cold against your soles, sending small shocks of sensation up your legs with each step. Your footsteps echo despite your attempt at quiet, each sound bouncing off the high ceilings and returning to you slightly altered, as if the house is mimicking your movements. The hallway stretches ahead of you, longer than it seems during the day. Portraits line the walls. You, your mother, your wife, your children. Some are professional paintings, others photographs in expensive frames. At the far end hangs a large crucifix, Jesus looking down with patient suffering. The images blur together in the dim light, faces watching you from the walls like an audience at a performance. You pass by your mother's portrait, the one you had commissioned last year. The artist captured her perfectly, the strength in her eyes, the slight set of her jaw, the way she could look at you and make you feel both loved and accountable. She's been dead for 3 years, but you still see her sometimes in the corners of rooms, still hear her voice in your head offering advice or criticism. Usually criticism. The air in the hallway carries a strange mixture of scents. Gun oil, which makes sense. You store weapons throughout the house, hidden in drawers and closets, always within reach. But underneath that, something else. Decaying flowers, sweet and slightly rotten. You realise you haven't checked the vases in days. The servants usually handle it, replacing dying flowers before they become obvious. But maybe they've been slipping. Or maybe the smell is coming from somewhere else. You walk past the main staircase, the one that spirals down to the entrance hall. During the day, light floods in through the skylight above, illuminating the space in warm tones that make everything look golden. Now, in the darkness, the staircase feels like a throat, like something that could swallow you if you got too close. You keep to the hallway, moving toward your private office at the far end of the wing. As you walk, you become aware that the house feels different tonight. During the day, it's just a building, luxurious but ordinary, stone and wood and glass, arranged into rooms and corridors. But at night, especially on nights like this when you're alone and awake while everyone else sleeps, the house takes on another quality. It feels alive. The doors seem to swell with the humidity, the wood expanding and contracting in ways that make them creak and groan. The chandeliers sway slightly, though you can't feel any breeze that would cause movement. The house breathes. You've always known this. but you've never admitted it, even to yourself. It's easier during the day to pretend that your home is just an expensive collection of materials that the money you spent bought you stability and permanence. But at night, the truth is harder to deny. You built this place on violence and fear, and those things have seeped into the walls, into the foundation. The house remembers. You pass a section of hallway where one light bulb flickers constantly. It's been doing that for months. You've told the maintenance staff to fix it a dozen times, but somehow it never gets done. After a while, you stopped asking. It became a superstition. If you fix it, you tell yourself, something worse will happen. Better to leave it as it is, flickering and uncertain, a small chaos that you've decided to allow. Outside the windows, you catch glimpses of the grounds. The manicured lawns stretch away into darkness. The zoo compound sits in the distance, a collection of enclosures and habitats that house your collection of exotic animals. You started acquiring them years ago. Elephants, hippos, giraffes, exotic birds. It seemed like something a king would do, something that announced wealth and power in a language everyone could understand, but maintaining them has become exhausting. The animals constantly need food, medical care, attention. Some of them have died, others have become aggressive, dangerous. You've thought about getting rid of them, but you can't bring yourself to do it. They're part of the image now, part of the legend. Without them, you're just a man with a big house. With them, you're Pablo Escobar, the man who built a kingdom in the jungle. You hear a sound and freeze. It's faint, coming from outside. You step closer to the nearest window and listen. There it is again, barking. Fainter than before, but definitely closer. The sound seems to be moving, circling the house. You try to trace it, moving from window to window, but by the time you reach each new vantage point, the sound has shifted. It's like trying to catch smoke. You pull your radio from your pocket. The guards should be monitoring the perimeter. They should know what's happening. You press the talk button. Security. This is Patron. Do you copy? Static. You try again. Security. Respond. More static, and then, maybe, a voice underneath it. Too distorted to make out words. The radio crackles and then goes silent. You slam your fist against the wall, the sound echoing through the empty hallway. Where is everyone? You have a staff of 60 people on the property at any given time. Guards, servants, drivers, maintenance workers. Even at 3 a.m, there should be people awake, alert, watching. But the house feels empty. You continue down the hall, moving faster now. Your reflection appears in a gilded mirror mounted between 2 doorways, and for a moment you don't recognize yourself. The man in the mirror looks older than 43. His hair is disheveled, his face drawn and shadowed. He's holding a gun like it's the only real thing in the world. He looks hunted. You look away quickly. The hallway ends at your private office. You reach for the door handle, then pause. Something about the door looks wrong. Not damaged or disturbed, but changed somehow. Like it's not quite in the same position it was earlier. You tell yourself this is impossible. Doors don't move, houses don't breathe. You're tired and stressed and imagining things. But the feeling persists. You turn the handle and push the door open. The hinges creak slightly, a sound you don't remember them making before. Inside, your office waits in darkness. You reach for the light switch, but before your fingers touch it, you hear the barking again. Louder now, much louder. It sounds like it's directly outside the office windows. You rush to the window and look out. The grounds are empty. No dogs, no people, no movement at all. But the barking continues, echoing off the walls of the house, seeming to come from everywhere at once. You spin around, trying to locate the source, but the sound has no direction. It just exists, filling the space like smoke, like gas, like something that can't be contained or controlled. The house exhales with you. You feel it in the slight settling of floorboards, in the way the chandeliers sway almost imperceptibly, in how the walls seem to contract and expand with each breath you take. You're not alone here. You've never been alone here. The house has always been watching, listening, waiting. And tonight, for reasons you can't understand, it's decided to show you the truth. The barking fades gradually, like water draining away. You stand in the darkness of your office, gun in hand, listening to your own heartbeat pound in your ears. Outside, the jungle hums its nighttime song. Insects chirp. Leaves rustle in the breeze. Normal sounds that should be comforting but somehow make everything worse. You walk to your desk and sit down heavily in your chair. The leather creaks under your weight. You set the gun on the desk and put your head in your hands. You're exhausted, running on fear and adrenaline and too many nights without real sleep. Maybe that's all this is. Exhaustion. Stress. The human mind's tendency to create patterns and threats where none exist. But even as you think it, you know you're lying to yourself. Something is happening tonight. Something is different. And whatever it is, it's only just beginning. You reach your private office and push the door fully open. The room sprawls before you. Glass desk imported from Milan, walls panelled in dark wood harvested from the Amazon, bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes you've never read but bought because powerful men are supposed to have libraries. The air smells like expensive cologne, and old paper, and something else underneath. Something metallic and sharp that might be your own fear. You flip the light switch, and fluorescent brightness floods the space, harsh and clinical. Every surface gleams. The glass desk reflects the ceiling lights in sharp white lines. The floor is polished to a mirror shine. Everything in this room screams wealth, power, control. But tonight it feels different. Tonight it feels like evidence. You walk around the desk and sink into your chair, the leather sighing under your weight. From here, you have a perfect view of the grounds through the large windows that make up most of the back wall. During the day, this view is commanding. You can see the gardens, the zoo compound, the distant mountains. You can watch workers moving across the lawns, guards patrolling the perimeter, helicopters landing on the pad beyond the trees. It makes you feel like a general surveying his army, a king watching his kingdom. But at night, the windows become mirrors. You see yourself reflected in the glass, and behind you, the empty office stretching back toward the door. The double image makes you feel exposed rather than powerful, like you're being observed from both sides at once. You pull open one of the desk drawers and find what you're looking for, a bottle of whiskey and a glass. You pour 2 fingers and drink it down in one swallow, feeling the burn all the way to your stomach. It doesn't help. Your hands are still shaking. You think about something you said in an interview years ago, when a journalist asked if you were afraid of extradition to the United States. "I'd rather be in a tomb in Colombia than a cell in America," you told him. You meant it. You still mean it. The idea of being caged, of having your freedom stripped away, of being subject to someone else's rules and schedule, it's worse than death. At least death is final. At least in a tomb you maintain some dignity. But sitting here tonight, in your fortress that cost millions to build and maintain, you realise the irony. This place feels exactly like both, a tomb and a cell combined. The walls are thick and secure, but they keep you in as much as they keep others out. You've built yourself a cage and called it a kingdom. You stand up and walk to the bookshelves that line one wall. Your fingers trace the spines of books you've never opened. Philosophy, history, literature. You bought them in bulk from a dealer in Bogota who specialised in making people look educated. He sent you a catalogue and you pointed at pictures, choosing based on how expensive and impressive the bindings looked. Behind these shelves, hidden in the wall, are several safes. They contain cash, millions in American dollars, Colombian pesos, and several other currencies. They contain documents, deeds, contracts, blackmail material on everyone from judges to generals. They contain secrets that could bring down governments or get you killed, depending on who found them first. You built this house with hidden spaces everywhere. Behind the walls, beneath the floors, in the ceilings, places to hide money, weapons, yourself. You tell yourself it's smart, that it's the kind of preparation that keeps a man like you alive. But really, what is it? A house full of hiding places is just another kind of prison, another way of acknowledging that you're not really safe anywhere. You think about the animals in your zoo, the lions pacing their enclosures, the hippos wallowing in their concrete pools, the birds in their aviaries. You brought them here from Africa, from Asia, from all over the world. You paid fortunes for them. You built them habitats that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. You did it to show that you could, to demonstrate that nothing was beyond your reach. But watching them over the years, seeing how they move in their spaces, you've started to recognise something familiar in their behaviour. They're caged, and they know it. No matter how large the enclosure, No matter how much it costs, it's still a cage. The hippos are particularly interesting. They've adapted well. Too well, actually. They've been breeding, spreading into the local rivers. The scientists you've consulted say they're becoming an invasive species, that they might cause problems for the ecosystem. You find this amusing. You brought them here to be decorations, symbols of your wealth and power, but they've escaped that definition. They're wild now, free in a way you'll never be. They're your legacy. Long after you're gone, the hippos will still be here, swimming in Colombian rivers where no hippos should exist. Reminders that Pablo Escobar was real and powerful enough to change the landscape itself. You walk back to the windows and look out at the darkness. The barking has stopped, but your nerves haven't settled. You scan the grounds, looking for any sign of movement, any explanation for what you heard. The security lights cast pools of illumination across the grass, but between them are shadows where anything could hide. You grip the window bars, decorative on the outside, functional on the inside, and feel the cool metal against your palms. These bars are here to keep people out, but standing on this side of them, they feel like they're keeping you in. Prison bars wrapped in gold leaf, but prison bars nonetheless. You hear the barking again, and this time it's coming from the valley below the house. The sound echoes up the hillside, bouncing off rocks and trees until it seems to surround you. You press your face close to the glass, trying to see down the slope, but the angle is wrong. All you can see is darkness and the faint shapes of trees swaying in the wind. The barking continues, insistent now, almost rhythmic. 3 barks, pause, 2 barks, pause, 4 barks, the same pattern as before. You're certain now that it's not random. Someone is sending a message. But who and why? Your mind cycles through possibilities. It could be the police, positioning themselves for a raid. But they would be quieter, wouldn't they? They wouldn't announce themselves with barking dogs. It could be a rival group, testing your security, probing for weaknesses. But that seems too elaborate, too strange. What rival would use dogs? It could be nothing. It could be wild animals or farm dogs from a neighbouring property, and you're so on edge that you're constructing a conspiracy out of ordinary sounds. But you don't believe that. The pattern is too deliberate. The timing is too precise. This is a message, even if you can't decode it yet. You realise suddenly that you're not safe anymore. Maybe you never were. You thought freedom meant having enough money and power that you could do whatever you wanted, go wherever you wanted, be whoever you wanted. But real freedom is different. Real freedom means not being afraid. And you're afraid all the time now. You're afraid of the police, of the government, of the Americans. You're afraid of your rivals, of betrayal from within your own organisation. You're afraid of judges and journalists and politicians who won't stay bought. You're afraid of photographs and recordings and witnesses. You're afraid of extradition, of prison, of death. And most of all, you're afraid of irrelevance, of being forgotten, of having all this money and power and influence disappear like it was never real. The barking stops abruptly, and the silence that follows feels like a question hanging in the air. What now? What's coming next? You stand at the window, looking out at your empire, and you realise that you don't know the answer. You've spent years building walls and buying silence and accumulating power, but none of it has made you safe. None of it has given you peace. You're just a man in an expensive cage, listening to dogs bark in the darkness, waiting for something you can't name to arrive. You turn away from the window and walk back to your desk. You sit down and pull out a ledger, one of the many that track the flow of money through your organisation. The numbers are enormous, millions moving every day, flowing through banks and businesses and front companies scattered across 3 continents. You run your finger down the columns, trying to focus on something concrete, something you can control. But the numbers blur together. They don't mean anything. They're just ink on paper, symbols that represent a power you're not sure you actually have anymore. You close the ledger and lean back in your chair. The leather creaks. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimes. 3:30 in the morning. Hours until sunrise. You could go back to bed, try to sleep, pretend that everything is normal, but you know you won't. You'll sit here in your office, in your fortress, in your tomb, waiting for dawn and wondering if the barking will start again. Wondering if this is what freedom looks like when you've bought too much of it. Just another kind of prison, decorated with gold and blood, where silence is the only currency that matters and the price keeps going up. You recall when you first used dogs. Real dogs, not the phantom barking that haunts you now. German shepherds, mostly. Beautiful animals, intelligent, loyal, vicious when they needed to be. You bought them from a breeder in Argentina who specialised in training guard dogs for security forces and drug operations. These weren't pets, they were weapons. You deployed them at storage facilities, at airstrips, at houses where you kept money or product or people who needed watching. The dogs would patrol the perimeters, their handlers following behind. Anyone who tried to approach without permission would hear the barking first, a warning. If they didn't heed it, the dogs would attack. You remember one of your lieutenants telling you how effective they were. The dogs don't negotiate, he said. They don't take bribes, they don't get scared. They just do what they're trained to do. You liked that. In a world where everyone could be bought or intimidated or turned, the dogs represented something pure. Their loyalty was simple, biological, absolute. The barking meant they were working. It meant your perimeter was secure. It meant someone who shouldn't be there had been detected. The sound was comfort. It was safety. But now, sitting in your office in the dead of night, the same sound fills you with dread. The barking isn't comfort anymore, it's accusation. You remember what happened after the Moncada bombing. That was 1990, though it feels like yesterday. The soccer stadium, the assassinations, the retaliation. You were at war with the Cali cartel, with the government, with everyone. Things were chaotic, violent, desperate. You were losing control and you knew it. One of your warehouses got hit. You had guards there, 12 men total, all armed and supposedly alert. You also had dogs, 4 German shepherds patrolling the grounds. The attack came at night, similar to now. Your guards reported hearing the dogs barking frantically about 20 minutes before the assault began. But they didn't investigate. They assumed it was nothing, maybe a rodent or a stray cat. They stayed at their posts smoking cigarettes and playing cards, waiting for someone else to check it out. By the time they realised what was happening, it was too late. The attackers came over the walls in 3 groups, synchronised and professional. They killed 10 of your men in the first 2 minutes. The other 2 tried to run but were cut down in the warehouse yard. The dogs fought. You heard about it later from witnesses in the surrounding area. The shepherds attacked the intruders, defended the property the way they were trained to. They bought time, created confusion. But dogs, no matter how well trained, can't stop bullets. All 4 were killed. When you arrived the next morning to survey the damage, you saw the bodies, your men and your dogs, sprawled across the concrete in pools of blood that had dried dark and sticky in the sun. The dogs were still in attack positions, frozen by rigor mortis in the middle of their final act of loyalty. You remember standing there, looking at them, and feeling something close to admiration. They died doing what they were supposed to do, following their nature and training to the very end. They were more reliable than most of your men, but you also remember thinking, their barking tried to warn us and we ignored it. After that, you had the rest of the guard dogs put down. You told your people it was for security reasons, that the dogs could be traced back to you, that they represented unnecessary exposure. But the real reason was simpler. You couldn't stand the sound of their barking anymore. Every time you heard it, you remembered those 12 men and 4 dogs bleeding out in a warehouse because someone didn't listen to a warning. Now, years later, in your fortress that's supposed to be impenetrable, you hear the barking again. And this time, there are no real dogs. You had them all removed, relocated, sold off. The barking you hear tonight shouldn't exist, which means it's either in your head or it's something worse. You stand up from your desk and walk to the window again. The eastern sky is still dark, but there's the faintest hint of change in the quality of the darkness. Dawn is hours away, but the night has reached that point where it begins the long, slow transition toward morning. The barking starts again, and this time you force yourself to really listen. You close your eyes and focus. The sound is coming from multiple directions now, overlapping, creating a disorienting chorus. Some barks are close, some distant. Some are deep and aggressive. Others higher-pitched and frantic. It sounds like a pack, like dozens of dogs all barking at once. But that's impossible. There are no dogs here. You've made sure of it. You open your eyes and scan the grounds again. Still nothing. No movement. No shapes in the darkness that don't belong there. Just empty lawns and silent buildings, and the security lights casting their lonely glow. You realise something that makes your blood cold. You're creating the barking yourself. Not consciously, not intentionally, but your mind is manufacturing the sound because it needs a warning. Your subconscious knows that something is wrong, that danger is approaching, and it's using the one alarm system you remember actually working. The sound of dogs alerting to a threat. The barking isn't real, but the threat is. Your mind is trying to tell you something that your conscious thoughts refuse to acknowledge. You're not safe here. You've never been safe here. All the walls and guards and guns and money haven't bought you safety. They've just bought you time, and now that time is running out. You think about those German shepherds again, how they died fighting against impossible odds, trying to protect something that couldn't be protected. You see yourself in them now. You're barking into the darkness, warning of threats you can barely articulate, fighting against an enemy that's everywhere and nowhere at once. The barking continues, and you don't fight it anymore. You let it fill your ears. Let it become the soundtrack to this long night. Maybe it's your mind breaking under years of stress and fear. Maybe it's a psychotic break brought on by paranoia and lack of sleep. Or maybe it's the most honest thing you've experienced in years. A clear, pure warning that the life you've built is collapsing, that the fortress is already breached, that the enemies are already inside the walls. You whisper to yourself so quietly that even you barely hear it. They tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. The barking intensifies, growing louder and more insistent, and you realise that this time you don't have the luxury of ignoring it. This time the warning is for you, and this time there's nowhere to run. Memory hits you in waves, sharp and disorienting. You're still standing at the window in your office, but suddenly you're also in another time, another place. The smell of diesel fuel, the rattle of machine gun fire. The wet streets of Medellin reflecting neon lights. Your mind fractures the present moment, splitting it into dozens of fragments that refuse to stay separate. You see yourself younger, maybe 25, standing on a street corner in Envigado. You're wearing cheap clothes, jeans and a cotton shirt, nothing like the expensive fabrics you wear now. Your hair is longer, darker, untouched by grey. You're smiling, laughing with men whose names you remember only because they're dead now. Gustavo, La Kika, Poison. Faces that got younger the longer they knew you, until the violence caught up and stopped their clocks permanently. That version of you felt invincible, not because you were rich or powerful, you weren't, not yet, but because you were young and hungry, and absolutely certain that you could outthink anyone who stood in your way. You believed the world would bend to your will if you pushed hard enough, and for a while it did. The memory dissolves and reforms into another one. You're in a warehouse, inspecting a shipment. Cocaine in kilo bricks, stacked higher than your head. The smell is chemical, clinical. Your lieutenant is explaining the distribution routes, using a map spread across a wooden crate. You're nodding, asking questions, calculating profit margins in your head. The numbers are astonishing. You're making more money in a week than most people see in a lifetime. This memory has a soundtrack. The barking of dogs outside, the shepherds patrolling the perimeter, their handlers calling commands. The sound meant everything was under control, everything was going according to plan. You blink, and the memory shatters. You're back in your office. But the barking continues, bleeding across time, connecting then to now in a way that feels like a bridge collapsing. Another memory surfaces, this one darker. You're in a meeting room with your associates discussing a problem. Someone has been talking to the police providing information. You don't know who yet, but you know it's someone close. The betrayal stings worse than the tactical threat. You trusted these men. You made them rich. And one of them has decided that's not enough. The conversation turns to solutions. Someone suggests interrogation. Someone else suggests simply killing everyone who had access to the information, eliminating the leak by removing all possible sources. You listen to these proposals with a calm expression, but inside you're calculating. Who do you trust? Who can you afford to lose? Who sends the right message? You make your decision. 3 names. You don't even say them out loud. You just write them on a piece of paper and pass it to your head of security. He reads it, nods, burns the paper in an ashtray. Within 24 hours, all 3 men are dead. You later discover that 2 of them were innocent, that the actual leak was someone you didn't even suspect. But by then it's too late. The message has been sent. Disloyalty means death, and Pablo Escobar doesn't require proof before pronouncing sentence. This memory also has barking in it. Real barking from dogs in the compound where the interrogations took place. Or maybe imagined barking, manufactured by your mind because the sound has become synonymous with violence and control. You can't tell anymore. The difference between what actually happened and what you remember happening has blurred beyond distinction. You're back in the present, but it feels less real than the memories. Your office, your desk, your expensive furniture. They all seem like stage props, temporary and unconvincing. The past feels more solid, more true. You've been trying to build distance between who you are now and who you were then, but tonight the distance evaporates. You're all your ages at once. The ambitious kid from Envigado, the rising trafficker, the hunted kingpin, the ghost. The barking merges with gunfire in your mind. You can't distinguish between the two sounds anymore. They're both warnings, both signals of violence approaching. Your brain interprets them as the same thing because they serve the same function. They announce that death is nearby. You remember children in the slums who used to bark like dogs to mock you. This was years ago, before you became too powerful to mock, before fear replaced familiarity. The kids would see you walking through the neighbourhood and they'd start barking, laughing, running away before you could react. At first it bothered you, then it amused you. Then, after you had real power, it enraged you. You had those families relocated. That's the word you used, relocated. Not disappeared, not killed, relocated, as if you were a government agency providing services, as if you were helping them move to better neighbourhoods. The truth is simpler and darker. You had them taken to places where no one would ask questions. You had them removed from the equation. And you never found out what happened to them after that because you made it a policy not to ask for details. Better to maintain plausible deniability. Better not to know exactly how many corpses your empire is built on. Now you hear their voices in the barking. Or maybe you're just creating meaning where none exists, finding guilt in random sounds because you've been carrying it for so long that you don't remember what innocence feels like. The memories keep coming, faster now, overlapping until they create a kind of static in your mind. The sound of your mother's voice, the smell of rain on concrete, the taste of blood in your mouth after a beating you received early in your career before you had the power to prevent anyone from touching you, the weight of money in a duffel bag, the kick of a pistol against your palm, the silence after you've given an order that will result in someone's death. Each memory bites, each one has teeth. You always thought that victory would feel different, that success would provide some kind of relief or satisfaction. But every achievement just revealed another problem, another threat, another battle to fight. Every peak you reached just showed you higher mountains beyond. You never got to rest. You never got to feel safe. You're stuck in a loop of acquisition and defense, always gathering more power to protect what you have, always needing more because what you have has never been enough. The barking intensifies, and you realize it's synced with your heartbeat. Or maybe your heartbeat has synced with it. Either way, the two rhythms have merged into a single urgent pulse that fills your chest and your ears and your entire existence. You want to make it stop. You want to silence it the way you've silenced everything else. With money, with threats, with violence. But you can't. The sound exists in your head, which means it's beyond your control. It's beyond your power to pay off or eliminate. It's yours to carry forever. You sink back into your chair and let the memories wash over you. There's no point fighting them anymore. They've been building for years, accumulating behind the dam of your conscious mind, and tonight the dam has cracked. Everything you've tried to forget, everything you've tried to bury is flooding back in. The faces, the names, the choices, the costs, every victory, every compromise, every moment where you chose power over humanity. It all comes back. It all has teeth. And it all sounds like barking, insistent and impossible to ignore, echoing through the empty rooms of your fortress and the crowded corridors of your memory until you can't tell which is which anymore. You close your eyes and listen to the sound. It's the only thing that feels real now. You speak into the darkness of your office, your voice barely above a whisper. Está bien. It's okay. You're not sure who you're talking to. Maybe yourself. Maybe God. Maybe the ghosts you've spent years pretending don't exist. The words echo slightly in the empty room, bouncing off glass and wood before dissipating into silence. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, you hear it back. Patron. The voice is distant, muffled, but distinct. Someone speaking your title. Someone acknowledging your presence. You stand up quickly, your chair rolling back and hitting the wall with a thud. You grab the gun from your desk and move toward the office door. Your heart is pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat, in your wrists, behind your eyes. You step into the hallway and listen. The house is silent. No footsteps, no movement. Just the ambient sounds of an old building. The creak of settling wood. The hum of air conditioning. The distant drip of a faucet somewhere. You wait. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Patron. There it is again. Clearer this time, though still distant. It's coming from the direction of the main staircase, from somewhere deeper in the house. You move toward it, your bare feet silent on the marble floor. The gun feels heavy in your hand. You keep it pointed at the floor, finger alongside the trigger guard. The way you learned years ago. Always ready, never careless. The hallway seems longer than it should be. The portraits on the walls watch you pass. Your mother's painted eyes follow you with what might be concern or judgment. You can't tell which, and maybe there's no difference. The flickering light bulb casts irregular shadows that make the walls seem to pulse. You reach the staircase and look down into the entrance hall. The space is vast and empty. The chandelier hangs motionless above the tiled floor. The front doors are closed and bolted. Everything looks exactly as it should, but something feels wrong. The air itself feels different, thicker, heavier, charged with potential. Patron. Closer now. Much closer. Your head snaps to the right. There's a sitting room off the main hall, one of the formal spaces you almost never use. The door is slightly ajar, and you're certain, almost certain, that it was closed earlier. You approach slowly, leading with the gun now, adrenaline sharpening your senses to a razor's edge. Every detail becomes hyper-real. You can see the grain in the wood door, the slight scuff marks on the floor, the way the air moves through the gap in the doorway. You reach the door and pause. Inside you hear breathing. Not heavy, not panicked, just the steady rhythm of someone waiting. You kick the door fully open and step inside, gun raised, ready to shoot. The room is empty. Furniture in perfect arrangement, curtains drawn, lamps off. No one there. But you heard breathing. You know you did. And you know you heard your name. You spin around, checking corners, behind the sofa, near the windows. Nothing. No one. The room is exactly as it should be. Undisturbed and pristine. You lower the gun slightly, confusion replacing some of the fear. Your mind scrambles for explanations. Maybe it was an echo of your own breathing distorted by acoustics. Maybe it was sound from outside carried through the ventilation system. Maybe it was Patron. Behind you. Right behind you. You spin, raising the gun, finger moving to the trigger. Nothing. Empty air. Empty room. Your own reflection in a mirror on the far wall, wild-eyed and dishevelled. A ghost haunting his own house. You back out of the room slowly, keeping your eyes on the space, searching for any sign of what you heard. But there's nothing. The room sits empty and judging, like everything else in this house. You're in the main hall again, and now the paintings seem to be speaking. Not aloud, but in your mind. You can feel their commentary on your fear, on your isolation, on the life you've built. Jesus on his cross, suffering eternal judgment. Your mother with her disappointed eyes. Your own portrait, younger and more confident, staring at the man you've become. The chandelier above you sways slightly. You look up, trying to determine if there's a breeze, if the air conditioning is causing it, but there's no obvious reason for the movement. It just sways back and forth, crystal pendants catching what little light exists and throwing prismatic shadows across the walls. The wallpaper seems to hum. You press your hand against it, feeling for vibration, for some mechanical explanation. The house breathes. You've always known this, but tonight you can feel it actively, consciously. The walls expand and contract with a rhythm that matches your own breathing. Or maybe you're matching theirs. You're inside something alive, something that's been watching you all along. You move back toward the staircase, trying to regain some sense of orientation. Your office is behind you. Your bedroom is on the second floor. You need to get back to something familiar, something concrete. But as you move, you catch movement in your peripheral vision. You spin, gun raised. A painting. Just a painting. The image of a conquistador on horseback, something you bought from an art dealer in Cartagena. But you could have sworn you saw it move. You could have sworn the horse's head turned to look at you. You're losing your grip, you can feel it slipping. The careful control you've maintained for years eroding under the pressure of this endless night. You've always prided yourself on your rationality, your ability to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when others panic. But rationality requires a stable reality to work with, and tonight reality itself feels negotiable. Patron. The word comes from everywhere now. From the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. It's not a voice anymore, it's a presence, an acknowledgement that you're not alone, that you've never been alone, that every person you've controlled or killed or betrayed is still here, still watching, still waiting. You fire the gun, once, twice, 3 times. The sound is deafening in the enclosed space, muzzle flashes lighting up the hall in brief white explosions. The bullets punch holes in the far wall, sending up puffs of plaster dust. The echoes of the gunshots reverberate through the house, bouncing from room to room, floor to floor, taking forever to dissipate. And when they finally do, when the silence returns, you hear laughter. Quiet, distant, but unmistakable. Someone laughing at you. Someone amused by your fear, by your desperation, by the pathetic spectacle of Pablo Escobar firing randomly into his own home. You lower the gun. Your hands are shaking badly now. You look at the bullet holes in the wall and see them for what they are. Evidence of your unravelling. You've damaged your own house, marked it with violence born of terror rather than control. You walk to the holes and touch them, feeling the rough edges of broken plaster. The wall is just a wall. It has no eyes, no voice, no judgment. It's just material, wood and plaster and paint. But it remembers. Everything in this house remembers. Every surface has absorbed what's happened here. Every room holds echoes of conversations, arguments, orders given and received. If walls could testify, yours would send you to prison for lifetimes. You realise with sudden clarity that you're inside your own evidence. The house itself is a confession, a detailed record of everything you've done. And tonight, for some reason, it's decided to speak. You back away from the wall, toward the staircase. You need to get outside into open space, away from these confining rooms and their accumulated guilt. But as you turn toward the entrance hall, you see that the front doors, which you know for certain were closed and bolted, are now standing open. Cool air flows in from the night outside. The security system should have triggered. Alarms should be screaming. Guards should be responding. But there's nothing. Just silence and open doors and the sense that whatever was outside has now come in. Or maybe what was inside has decided to leave. You're not sure which would be worse. You move toward the doors, gun extended, ready for anything. But when you reach them and look outside, there's nothing there. Just your empty driveway, your manicured grounds, your distant security lights. No intruders, no guards, no explanation. You step through the doorway, onto the front terrace, and feel the night air on your skin. It's cooler out here, cleaner. The oppressive atmosphere of the house lifts slightly. You can breathe. Above you the sky is still dark but changing. The stars are fading as the earliest hint of dawn begins to lighten the eastern horizon. You've made it through most of the night. You should feel relieved, but you don't. Because you know, with absolute certainty, that this isn't over. Whatever started with the barking of invisible dogs hasn't reached its conclusion. The night is speaking to you in a language you're only beginning to understand, and the message isn't finished. You enter the shrine room slowly, reverently, though you're not sure if it's reverence or superstition that guides your movements. The space is small, tucked into a corner of the house that most people never see. It's yours, private, the place where you keep your relationship with God, or whatever approximation of God you still believe in. The smell hits you first. Incense and wax and something underneath that's less pleasant. Decay, maybe. Or rot. Something organic breaking down. You try to locate the source, but can't. Maybe it's just your imagination, another trick of this endless night. Candles line 2 walls, dozens of them, some burning low, others already extinguished. The Virgin Mary stands in the centre of a wooden altar, her painted face benevolent and sad. Her hands are outstretched in blessing or supplication, you've never been sure which. Around her are photographs in frames. Your mother, looking strong and proud. Your father, a man you barely knew, stern in his only good suit. Friends from your childhood, most of them dead now from violence or drugs or simply the grinding poverty that kills just as surely. Gustavo Gaviria, your cousin and right hand, murdered by police on a Medellin rooftop years ago. You light a candle for him every week, a ritual that feels both meaningful and hollow. Other photographs show your family, your wife, your children. You put them here to protect them, to keep them in God's sight. You're not sure if it works. You're not sure if God even looks at this altar, given what you've done, what you continue to do. But you light the candles anyway, because what else can you do? Your mother's rosary hangs from a hook beside the Virgin Mary. The beads are worn smooth from decades of use, first by her hands, now by yours. Next to it, hanging from its own hook like some kind of grotesque pairing, is an AK-47 magazine, 30 rounds, fully loaded. You're not sure when you put it there or why, maybe as a joke. Maybe as an acknowledgement that your life requires both prayer and ammunition, often in equal measure. You kneel on the cushion in front of the altar, the gun still in your hand. You set it beside you on the floor and make the sign of the cross. The gesture feels mechanical, perfunctory, but you do it anyway. The habits of childhood never fully leave you. You light another candle with shaking hands. The match flame gutters, almost goes out, then catches the wick. Light blooms in the small space, adding to the flickering glow of the other candles. The shadows dance on the walls, creating the illusion of movement, of presence. You stare at the Virgin Mary's face. She looks back with infinite patience, the way she's looked at sinners for 2,000 years. You wonder what she sees when she looks at you. Monster, believer, both, neither. You remember when priests used to bless your operations. This was years ago, before things got too public, too violent, too obviously wrong. You'd have a priest come to one of your properties, usually at night, usually paid handsomely for his discretion. He'd bless your vehicles before runs to the coast. He'd bless your safe houses. One time, you had him bless a shipment of cocaine, tons of it stacked in a warehouse. The priest performed the ritual with a straight face, making the sign of the crossover drugs that would destroy thousands of lives. You wondered at the time if he struggled with the contradiction, if he went home and questioned what he'd done, or maybe he'd managed to compartmentalize to convince himself that blessing things wasn't the same as endorsing them, that God's grace was available even to people like you. You'd done the same thing, hadn't you? Compartmentalized. Separated Pablo the family man from Pablo the trafficker from Pablo the killer. Kept them in different boxes so you didn't have to confront the contradiction. But tonight, the boxes are breaking open. The barking sounds again and you flinch. It's muffled now, distant but definitely there. The sound seems to be coming from under the floor, which makes no sense. There's nothing beneath this room except foundation and earth. No basement, no tunnels, no space where dogs could be. Yet you hear it clearly, barking under the floorboards, like something buried that refuses to stay dead. You drop the lighter, it clatters on the wooden floor, the flame dying instantly. You're plunged into semi-darkness, lit only by candles. Your hands are shaking badly. You pick up the lighter, try again. It takes 3 attempts to get it lit. The barking continues, steady and rhythmic. You try to pray. The words come automatically, learned in childhood, repeated thousands of times over the years. Dios te salve, Maria, llena eres de gracia. But the prayer feels hollow. The words have no weight, no power. They're just sounds you're making, desperate incantations that accomplish nothing. You think about all the times you've tried to negotiate with God. Make this deal work and I'll donate to the church, keep my family safe and I'll be more careful. Let me survive this war and I'll retire, go legitimate, stop the violence. But you never kept those promises. Every time you survived, every time things worked out, you went right back to business as usual. You took God's grace, if it even was grace, and used it as fuel for more of the same. God became another employee in your empire, someone you paid with prayers and donations, someone whose favour you tried to buy the same way you bought judges and politicians. You wonder if he noticed. You wonder if he cares. You wonder if he's even there. The candle you're holding drips wax onto your hand. Hot pain brings you back to the present. You set the candle in its holder and look at your palm. Red wax has hardened there, looking disturbingly like blood. You peel it off slowly, feeling skin pull. The barking grows louder. It's definitely under the floor now, maybe in the walls too, surrounding you. You want to run, but force yourself to stay. If you run from here, from your shrine, from the one place you've tried to maintain some connection, to something beyond yourself, where else is there to go? You look at the photographs again. All these people, dead or distant, lost to time and violence and your own choices. You kept their images here like you were preserving something, maintaining some kind of connection. But they're just photographs, paper and ink. The people they represent are gone, and no amount of candlelight will bring them back. Gustavo stares out from his frame, young and alive in a moment frozen 3 decades ago. You remember the day that photo was taken. You were at a party in Envigado, celebrating some deal you can't even remember now. Everyone was drinking, laughing, planning futures that most of them wouldn't live to see. Gustavo was your best friend, your partner, your brother in everything but blood. And you got him killed. Not directly, not intentionally, but killed nonetheless. He died because he was associated with you, because being close to Pablo Escobar had become a death sentence. You light another candle for him, the flame adding to the dim constellation of light in the small room. You whisper, "Lo siento, hermano." I'm sorry, brother, but the words are inadequate. They've always been inadequate. Sorry doesn't resurrect the dead. Sorry doesn't undo choices made. Sorry is just another sound you make to convince yourself you still feel human emotions. The barking stops abruptly. The silence that follows feels worse. You wait for it to resume, but it doesn't. The quiet stretches out, becomes oppressive. You realise you'd almost prefer the barking. At least it was something. At least it broke the silence. Now you're alone in your shrine with your photographs and your candles and your guns and your prayers, and none of it means anything. You bow your head and try one more time to pray, but the words won't come. Your mind is blank. After years of negotiation and bargaining and desperate pleading, you have nothing left to say to God. You've run out of promises. You've run out of justifications. You've run out of hope that divine intervention will save you from the consequences of your own actions. You open your eyes and look at the Virgin Mary. She's still there, still patient, still waiting. But her face seems different now, less benevolent, more sorrowful, like she's mourning something that hasn't happened yet but is inevitable, like she can see your future and it's already written and there's nothing she can do to change it. The candles flicker. One by one they begin to go out, not from wind or breath, but spontaneously, as if someone is walking through the room extinguishing them. You watch it happen, too tired to be frightened anymore. The light diminishes, the shadows grow. Soon there's only one candle left burning, the one in front of the Virgin Mary. Her face glows in the single flame, and for just a moment you swear you see her eyes move. You swear she looks directly at you with an expression that might be pity or might be rejection, or might be something else entirely. Then that candle goes out too. You're left in complete darkness. The shrine room is silent, lightless, empty of everything except your own breathing and the weight of all the things you've done. You reach for your gun on the floor. Your fingers find it, close around it. The metal is cool and solid and real. It's the only thing left that makes sense. You stand up slowly, knees aching from kneeling. You leave the shrine room without looking back, without relighting the candles, without saying amen or goodbye or anything at all. Behind you, in the darkness, the photographs watch you go. The Virgin Mary maintains her eternal vigil over an empty room, and somewhere, in the walls, under the floor, in your mind, you hear the faintest echo of barking, a sound that might be memory or might be prophecy, or might be the voice of something that's been waiting for you all along. You step outside through the French doors that open from the main hall onto the veranda. The night air hits your face, humid and heavy, but cleaner than the trapped atmosphere inside. You breathe deeply, trying to clear your head, trying to ground yourself in something real. The fog has rolled in from the valley, thick and low, covering the manicured lawns in a layer of white that makes everything look otherworldly. The security lights create halos in the mist, glowing orbs that illuminate nothing except the fog itself. You can barely see 20 feet in any direction. The estate, your empire, your fortress, has been reduced to a small circle of visible ground and an infinite wall of white beyond. You move to the edge of the veranda, gun held loosely in your right hand. The marble beneath your bare feet is cold and slightly damp. You can feel moisture in the air, heavy enough to bead on your skin. The fog mutes all sound. You can't hear the usual nighttime chorus of insects and animals. The world has been wrapped in cotton, suffocated, reduced to just you and the circle of space immediately around you. Then you see them. Figures moving in the fog, not clearly, not distinctly, but definitely there. Shadows that are slightly darker than the mist around them, shapes that move with purpose and coordination. You count them instinctively. 4. No. 5. No. More. They're circling the house, moving slowly, deliberately, taking positions around the perimeter. You raise the gun, trying to get a clear sight picture, but the fog makes it impossible. Every time you think you've focused on one of the figures, it dissolves back into the mist. You call out, "Quién está ahí? Who's there?" Your voice sounds flat in the muffled air, barely carrying beyond the veranda. No response. The figures continue their slow movement, appearing and disappearing in the fog like ghosts materializing and dematerializing at will. You fire a shot into the air, the crack of the gunshot absurdly loud after the muted quiet. The muzzle flash lights up your immediate area in a brief, brilliant white. Then darkness again. The echo of the shot rolls across the grounds, bouncing off buildings and trees before fading. You listen for a response, for shouts, for return fire, for anything, nothing. The figures continue their movement as if you haven't fired at all, as if you're not even a threat. You move down the steps from the veranda onto the lawn. The grass is wet with dew and fog, soaking your feet immediately. You advance toward the nearest figure, gun extended, finger on the trigger. 10 feet, 8, 6. The figure moves, shifting sideways into deeper fog. You follow it, but as you do, another figure appears behind you. You spin, bringing the gun around, but it's already gone. You're being surrounded. The realization comes with cold certainty. They're not advancing on you, not attacking. They're positioning themselves, creating a perimeter within your perimeter, claiming your space as theirs. You move back toward the house, trying to maintain some tactical advantage. But as you retreat, the figures advance, slowly, patiently, matching your movements, always staying just at the edge of visibility, always present, but never quite there. The barking starts again. This time, it's all around you. To your left, your right. Behind you, ahead of you. Multiple dogs barking in the fog, creating an acoustic cage. You spin in a circle, trying to locate the source, but the sound comes from everywhere at once. Your own breath starts coming in short gasps. You're hyperventilating, panic overriding training. The fog seems thicker now, pressing in. You can barely see the house behind you. The security lights are just dim smudges in the white. You're lost on your own property, surrounded by enemies or ghosts or hallucinations. You can't tell which anymore. A shadow crosses directly in front of you, close enough to touch. You fire. Once, twice, 3 times. The muzzle flashes turn the fog briefly orange. You hear the bullets hit something. Wood, stone, earth. Not flesh. Never flesh. When your vision clears from the flash blindness, the shadow is gone. But others have appeared in its place. The fog roils and shifts. Shapes move through it like fish through murky water. You see flashes of features, a face, a hand, the outline of a body, but never enough to identify anyone. Never enough to confirm they're even real. You're backing up again toward where you think the house is. Your feet slip on wet grass. You catch yourself, nearly dropping the gun, and when you look up, the figures are closer. Much closer. One stands directly ahead of you, perhaps 5 feet away. Through the fog you can make out more details. A man, dark clothes, something in his hands, a weapon, maybe, or just a shadow. You raise your gun, aiming at center mass. Your finger tightens on the trigger, but you don't fire. Something about the figure stops you. Not fear exactly, recognition. You know this person, or you knew them. The certainty is overwhelming even though you can't see the face clearly. Gustavo? The name escapes your lips before you can stop it. The figure doesn't respond, doesn't move, just stands there in the fog watching you, judging you. Your hand starts to shake. The gun wavers. You're seconds from firing, but you can't do it. Can't shoot at something that might be your oldest friend, even though Gustavo has been dead for years, even though you know, rationally, logically, that this can't be him. The figure takes a step forward. You see the face more clearly now. It's not Gustavo. It's someone else. Someone you killed, or had killed, or failed to protect. The features are familiar, but you can't place them. Your memory is too crowded with the dead. Another figure appears beside the first, then another. They're materializing from the fog, forming a semicircle around you. All of them familiar. All of them impossible. You recognize a police officer you had executed for refusing a bribe, a journalist who wrote unflattering articles until someone put a bomb under his car, a rival trafficker you had tortured for information before having him fed to dogs. Real dogs. Not the phantom ones that haunt you now. One by one they appear, a congregation of the dead, all of them silent. All of them staring at you with eyes that don't blink, with faces that don't register emotion. They're not angry. They're not sad. They're just there, presenting themselves, demanding acknowledgement. You're surrounded completely now. The circle has closed. Figures stand shoulder to shoulder in the fog, blocking any escape route. The house is somewhere behind them, but you can't see it anymore. You can't see anything except the dead come to collect. The barking intensifies. It's not coming from outside anymore. It's coming from the figures themselves, from their mouths that don't move, from their chests that don't rise and fall with breath. They're barking at you, warning, accusing, claiming. You fire into the circle. The gun bucks in your hand, the sound deafening. You fire again and again, emptying the magazine in a panicked spray. Muzzle flashes strobe the fog. Shell casings arc through the air, landing in wet grass with small metallic sounds. When the slide locks back on an empty chamber, you stop. Your ears ring. Smoke rises from the barrel. The smell of gunpowder is sharp and acrid. The figures haven't moved. They haven't fallen. They just stand there, patient and eternal. You drop the gun. It lands in the grass with a soft thud. Your hands rise to your head, pressing against your skull, as if you can somehow hold your sanity in through physical pressure. The barking continues, and now it's accompanied by another sound. Laughter. Quiet at first, then building. The figures are laughing at you, not cruelly, not mockingly, but with a kind of sad amusement. The laughter of people who understand something you don't, who know how this story ends. You sink to your knees in the wet grass. The fog swirls around you. The figures maintain their positions, neither advancing nor retreating. The jungle beyond your property line seems to be moving closer. You can hear it now, rustling, breathing, growing. The carefully maintained boundary between your controlled space and the wild is dissolving. Nature is reclaiming what you tried to take from it. The fog is thinning slightly. Dawn is approaching. In another hour the sun will rise and burn away the mist, and your security team will arrive for their day shift and everything will look normal again. But you know the truth now. You know that the fortress was always an illusion. The walls never kept anyone out. They just kept you in. You're not a king. You're not even a prisoner. You're a ghost haunting your own life, wandering through spaces you thought you owned but which never belonged to you at all. The barking fades gradually like a radio being turned down. The figures begin to dissolve back into the fog. One by one they disappear, becoming shadows, becoming mist, becoming nothing. Soon you're alone again on the lawn, kneeling in wet grass, surrounded by empty air and the approaching dawn. You know they'll be back. Maybe tonight, maybe every night from now on, because they were never really gone. They've been here all along, waiting in the fog of your mind, patient as the dead always are, waiting for you to stop running, waiting for you to finally look at what you've done, waiting for the debt to come due. The barking changes. You're still kneeling on the lawn, the wet grass soaking through your pants, when you hear it shift. The sound that's been tormenting you all night, animal, primal, impossible, begins to distort. The pitch drops, becomes deeper, resonates in a way that dog vocalizations never do. Then you hear words underneath it. Not clearly at first, just fragments, syllables that might be language or might be your mind desperately trying to impose meaning on chaos. But gradually, unmistakably, the barking becomes speech. Voices slip through the sound like radio signals breaking through static. You catch individual words, your name, your title, fragments of conversations you had years ago. The barking is translating itself, revealing what it's always been. Not animal warning, but human accusation. You press your hands over your ears, but it doesn't help. The sound isn't coming from outside anymore, it's inside your skull, vibrating in the bones of your head, speaking directly into your brain. Patron. The word emerges from the cacophony, clear and distinct. It's spoken in a voice you recognize, one of your lieutenants who died in a raid 5 years ago. A man you sent on a mission you knew was dangerous but necessary. A man who trusted you completely and paid for that trust with his life. Patron, time to feed your dogs. The words are heavy with implication. You remember saying that phrase yourself, using it as code for eliminating problems, for dealing with people who knew too much or threatened too much or simply existed inconveniently. You'd say it casually, like discussing livestock, and men would die. The euphemism made it easier, made it sound like business instead of murder. Now those words come back to you in a dead man's voice, and you understand what they really meant all along. You drop your hands from your ears. There's no point in fighting it. The sound is everywhere, and it's you. You created this. You spoke these words into existence over years and decades, and now they're speaking back. Another voice joins the first. This one belongs to a woman, a witness you had eliminated because her testimony would have been inconvenient. She'd seen a killing, had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you'd made the practical decision that her silence was worth more dead than alive. You said you'd take care of my children, her voice says, emerging from the barking like a swimmer surfacing from dark water. You promised they'd be safe. You don't remember making that promise, but you probably did. You said a lot of things to a lot of people over the years. Promises were tools, words were weapons, and truth was whatever served your purpose in the moment. More voices now. They overlap, creating a choir of the dead and damaged. Accusations blend with pleas, threats mix with prayers, until the barking has become a conversation you're having with everyone you've ever wronged. A guard you had executed for stealing from a shipment. A rival you tortured for information. A politician you paid and then eliminated when he became more liability than asset. Child, this voice hits hardest. A child asking why. Why did the bomb have to be there? Why did the bullets have to fly through that particular wall? Why did being in the wrong family mean dying before your 10th birthday? You have no answer. You never had an answer. Collateral damage was just another cost of doing business, another line item in the ledger of your empire. But collateral has a voice now, and it's asking questions you can't deflect. You try to speak, to defend yourself, to explain that it was never personal, that it was just business, that in a war everyone becomes a casualty. But your throat closes, no words come out. You're mute while the barking voices continue their testimony. You hear Gustavo's voice now, your cousin, your best friend. You got us all killed, Primo. Every single one of us. It's not accusatory, just factual, sad. The voice of someone stating an obvious truth that you've spent years denying. He's right. You know he's right. Everyone who got close to you died, killed by police, by rivals, by the inevitable violence that follows you like a shadow. You're radioactive. You're poison. Association with Pablo Escobar is a death sentence, and you've been signing execution orders with every friendship, every alliance, every partnership you formed. The voices multiply. They're talking over each other now, creating a wall of sound that's somehow still comprehensible. Every word registers, every accusation lands. You hear yourself in their voices too, your own words, your own orders, coming back to you in a monstrous echo. Make it quiet. No witnesses. You know what needs to be done. Handle it. Phrases you use to maintain deniability, to keep your hands technically clean while blood flowed at your command. The euphemisms and codes you employed to distance yourself from the consequences of your decisions. All of it comes back now, undisguised, revealed for what it always was. The barking reaches a crescendo. The voices blend into a single accusatory roar that seems to shake the ground beneath you. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the core of your being. The sound has mass, has weight, has power you never anticipated. You yell back at it. Your voice finally breaks free, raw and desperate. I gave you everything, the words tear from your throat. I gave you money, power, protection. I built an empire. I gave you everything. Your voice echoes across the grounds, bounces off the house, disappears into the fog. For a moment there's silence. The barking voices stop. The world holds its breath. Then, quietly, almost gently, a response comes. It's not one voice. It's all of them, speaking in perfect unison, delivering a verdict. You gave us death. The words land like a physical blow. You feel them impact your chest, stealing your breath, because it's true. It's absolutely, undeniably true. Everything you gave, money, opportunities, positions, power, came with death attached. Some died quickly, some slowly. Some knew it was coming, some never saw it approach. But everyone who entered your orbit eventually paid the same price. You were never a benefactor. You were a plague. The house behind you shakes. You feel the vibration through the ground. At first you think it's an earthquake, but the movement is too rhythmic, too purposeful. The house is shaking in time with the sound, resonating with the chorus of voices. Your fortress is amplifying the accusation, adding its own structural testimony to the evidence against you. Windows rattle in their frames. You hear glass cracking somewhere. A chandelier crashes inside, crystal shattering on marble. The house you built to protect yourself is coming apart, unable to contain the weight of what it's witnessed. You're on your hands and knees now, head bowed, like a supplicant or a condemned man. Maybe both. The voices continue their testimony, each one adding their story to the collective narrative. A truck driver who delivered for you, killed when a shipment was intercepted. A banker who laundered your money, murdered when he became a liability. A police captain you paid for years, executed when he tried to arrest someone you were protecting. The list goes on and on. Names you remember and names you've forgotten. Faces that are clear and faces that have blurred with time. All of them here now. All of them testifying. All of them making sure you remember what you've tried so hard to forget. The fog swirls around you. The dawn is definitely coming now. You can see light touching the eastern sky, turning it from black to deep blue. The night is ending. But the voices don't stop. They're not tied to darkness or light. They exist independent of time, permanent as gravestones, eternal as guilt. You realize with horrible clarity that this will never end. This moment, this reckoning, will follow you forever. Even if the voices eventually quiet, even if the barking stops, you'll carry this with you. It's inside you now, as much a part of you as your own heartbeat. You've been feeding your dogs all along. Every person you killed, every life you destroyed, every family you shattered. They've all been dogs in your kennel, and now they're hungry. Now they want payment. Now they want their pound of flesh. And you have no more food to give them. Nothing left except yourself. The voices begin to fade, not because they're done, but because you've heard enough. The message has been delivered. You've been judged, and the verdict is clear. The barking dissolves back into the sound it started as animal, primal, impossible. But you know better now. You know what it really is. It's the sound of everything you've done coming back to you. It's the sound of debts being called. It's the sound of time running out. All at once the sound stops. Complete silence descends like a curtain. You're kneeling in wet grass in the pre-dawn light, completely alone, completely exposed. The house looms behind you, damaged but standing. The fog is thinning as the sun approaches. Everything looks almost normal. Almost. You slowly get to your feet. Your knees ache. Your whole body aches. You feel decades older than you did when this night started. You look down and see the gun in the grass where you dropped it. You pick it up, check it reflexively. Empty. You spent all your ammunition firing at ghosts. The metaphor is so obvious it would be funny if you had any laughter left in you. You turn back toward the house. You need to go inside, need to find more ammunition, need to prepare for whatever comes next. But as you take your first step toward the veranda, you hear something that stops you cold. A single bark. Clear, close, real. You spin around and see it. A dog. An actual dog. A German shepherd standing at the edge of the lawn, just where the fog is thickest. It's watching you with intelligent eyes, head tilted slightly, assessing. It's not threatening, it's not aggressive, it's just there. Waiting. You stare at it. It stares back. For a long moment, neither of you moves. Then, slowly, deliberately, the dog turns and walks into the fog. It doesn't look back. It simply leaves, dissolving into the mist like it was never there at all. You're alone again. The eastern sky continues to lighten. Somewhere in the distance you hear a rooster crow. Morning is coming. The world is waking up, and you're standing on your lawn, empty gun in hand, surrounded by the wreckage of a night that's revealed truths you can't unlearn. You walk back toward the house. Your feet are numb from the cold and wet. Your mind is numb from something else entirely. Behind you, the fog begins to lift. The sun is rising. But you know, with absolute certainty, that the darkness has just begun. You reach the main entrance of the house and stop at the threshold. The doors are still open, just as they were when you left. The interior is dark, despite the approaching dawn. You step inside and immediately sense that something has changed. The house feels emptier than before. Not physically, all the furniture is still there, all the expensive decorations in their places, but spiritually, like the structure has exhaled and everything living has left with the breath. You move through the entrance hall, your wet feet leaving tracks on the marble floor. The chandelier that you heard crash is indeed shattered. Crystal fragments spread across the tiles like diamonds. You step around them carefully, heading toward the security office where you keep extra weapons and ammunition. The hallways feel longer in the growing light. Shadows retreat into corners but don't disappear entirely. Everything has a grey, uncertain quality. Not quite day, not quite night, caught between states. You pass the sitting room where you heard your name called earlier. The door is closed now. You don't remember closing it. You don't stop to investigate. You reach the security office and find the door ajar. This room should be occupied 24 hours a day. There should be at least 2 guards monitoring the camera feeds, coordinating patrols, maintaining communication with the perimeter teams. You push the door fully open. The room is empty. The monitors are on, showing views of the grounds from dozens of cameras. The security lights illuminate patches of grass, sections of wall, corners of buildings. Everything looks normal on the screens. Peaceful. Undisturbed. No fog visible in the feeds, which is strange because you just walk through it. No figures moving in the distance. No evidence that anything unusual happened tonight. Just a quiet estate in the early morning. You look at the desk where the guards usually sit. Coffee cups, still warm when you touch them. A half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper. A magazine open to some article about football. The guards left recently. Minutes ago, maybe. But where did they go? You check the radio mounted on the wall. You press the transmit button. Security team, report. Static. You try again. Any security personnel respond. Nothing. Just the hiss of an open channel with no one listening. You scan the desk for the duty log, the notebook where guards record their observations and shift changes. You find it next to the keyboard. The last entry is from 11:43 p.m. Hours ago. It's a routine notation. Perimeter check complete. All clear. Nothing after that. No record of anything unusual. No indication of why the entire security staff would abandon their posts. You open drawers, looking for ammunition. You find boxes of 9mm rounds and reload your pistol, the action mechanical and familiar. The weight of a loaded gun is comforting, even though you've learned tonight that weight doesn't equal safety. You grab an extra magazine and pocket it. As you're about to leave the office, you notice something on one of the monitors. Movement. You step closer to the screen, studying it. The camera shows the main gate, the entrance to your estate. A vehicle is parked there. Not one of yours. You know all your vehicles. This is something else. A dark SUV, lights off, just sitting outside your property line. You watch for 30 seconds. A minute. The vehicle doesn't move. You switch to another camera angle trying to get a better view, but the position doesn't give you much. You can see the vehicle's silhouette, can tell it's occupied, you see shapes inside, but you can't make out details. Someone is watching your gate, waiting. You feel your pulse accelerate. This is it. This is what the barking was warning about. Not ghosts, not memories, not psychological collapse. Actual physical threat. Someone is outside your compound and they're not trying to hide. They want you to know they're there. You move quickly now, leaving the security office and heading to your bedroom. You need to wake your wife. Need to get your family to the safe room. Need to activate emergency protocols. But when you reach your bedroom door, you pause. You hear breathing inside. Not your wife's steady sleeping rhythm. Something else. Heavier. Multiple sources. You press your ear against the door and listen. Definitely more than one person in there. Moving around, searching maybe, repositioning. Your hand tightens on the gun. Your family could be in danger, or your family could be gone, and these are intruders who've taken their place. You make a decision. You throw the door open and enter fast, gun raised, sweeping the room. Empty. Your wife is still asleep in the bed, exactly where you left her hours ago. The room is undisturbed, no intruders, no one else at all. But you heard them. You're certain of it. You move to your wife's side of the bed and shake her gently. Wake up. We need to move. She doesn't respond. You shake harder. Wake up. Now. Nothing. Her breathing continues, slow and steady. You pull back the covers, check for obvious injury. Nothing. She's just asleep. Deeply, impossibly asleep. You try shouting her name directly in her ear. Still nothing. It's like she's been sedated, or like she's chosen not to wake up, decided that whatever's happening isn't worth confronting. You're on your own. The realization settles over you with cold finality. Your security team is gone. Your wife won't wake. Your fortress is empty except for you and whatever's coming. The entire apparatus you built to protect yourself has vanished when you need it most. You move to the window and look out toward the main gate. From this angle, you can't see the SUV, but you know it's there, waiting. You check your watch. 4:47 a.m. The sun will be fully up in less than an hour. You make a decision. You're not going to wait in here like prey in a trap. You're going to go to them. Confront whatever's coming. If this is a raid, if this is an arrest, if this is an assassination, whatever it is, you'll face it on your feet, armed, with your eyes open. You leave the bedroom and head for the stairs. As you descend, you notice the portraits on the walls. They look different in the grey pre-dawn light. The faces seem to follow you with their eyes, tracking your movement. Your mother's expression looks more disappointed than usual. Jesus on his cross looks more resigned, like he knows what's coming and has already made peace with it. You reach the ground floor and move toward the entrance. The shattered chandelier crunches under your feet. You step outside onto the veranda, gun held ready, and survey your grounds in the growing light. The fog has mostly lifted. You can see across the lawns now, can make out the tree lines, the distant buildings. Everything looks normal. Beautiful even. The sun is just beginning to touch the tops of the mountains to the east, painting them gold. Your empire looks peaceful. You walk down the steps and across the grass, heading toward the main gate. You move deliberately, not trying to hide. If they're watching, and you're sure they are, you want them to see you coming. Want them to know you're not cowering inside. The walk feels longer than it should. The gate is perhaps 200 metres from the main house, but each step seems to take forever. You're hyper-aware of everything. The dew on the grass, the birds beginning their morning songs, the way your pulse beats in your ears, the weight of the gun in your hand. You're halfway to the gate when you hear it. A car engine starting, the SUV. You see it now through the iron bars of your gate. It's pulling away, slowly and unhurriedly. Not fleeing, just leaving, like it accomplished what it came to do without ever entering your property. You break into a run, trying to reach the gate before the vehicle disappears. But it's too late. By the time you arrive at the entrance, the SUV has driven away, its taillights disappearing around a bend in the road. You're left standing at your own gate, breathing hard, gun in hand, staring at empty pavement. Were they surveillance, threat assessment, psychological warfare, or were they something else entirely? A figment, an hallucination, one more piece of this night that refuses to make sense. You turn around and look back at your house. From here, at this distance. It looks magnificent. A palace. A testament to what one man can build if he's willing to pay any price and cross any line. The sun is touching it now, illuminating the white walls, making the windows gleam. It looks like paradise. But you know better. You know what's inside those walls. You know what it's built on. You know the price that's been paid by you and everyone around you to create this illusion of safety and success. You start walking back toward the house. The sun continues to rise, the world continues to wake, and you're still here, still alive, still standing. But something ended tonight. You can feel it. Some protection lifted, some grace period expired. The barking was a warning. The voices were a testimony. The empty house, the watching vehicle, the approaching dawn, they're all pieces of a message you're only beginning to understand. Your time is running out, the debt is coming due, and no amount of walls or weapons or money will stop what's approaching. You reach the house and stand at the bottom of the steps, looking up at the entrance. You need to go inside, need to figure out where everyone went, need to make calls, activate contingencies, prepare for whatever comes next. But you don't move, you just stand there, gun heavy in your hand, watching the sun rise over your empire. Somewhere in the distance you hear a dog bark once. Just once. An ordinary sound in an ordinary morning, but you know better now. You'll never hear a bark the same way again. You'll never mistake it for something innocent. From now on, every bark will be a reminder. Every silence will be full of voices. Every night will be this night, repeating in infinite variations until the debt is finally paid. You climb the steps slowly. You cross the threshold. You enter your fortress. And behind you, the sun continues to rise, indifferent and eternal, illuminating a world that's already moved on without you. You walk through empty rooms, searching for anyone. The marble echoes your footsteps. The kitchen is cold, stoves silent, counters bare. Coffee sits half full in a carafe, still warm. Someone made it, then vanished. You pour a cup, bitter, over-extracted. You drink it anyway. The servants' quarters are empty, beds made. Personal items untouched, photographs, clothes, toiletries. They didn't pack, they just left. The garage holds all your vehicles, keys on hooks, nothing missing. They didn't drive away. Guard stations across the property, all empty, coffee cups on tables, rifles in racks. One station has a card game abandoned mid-hand, cards face down on a crate. Everyone vanished mid-activity. You reach the animal compound. Elephants sway. Hippos surface in their pool. Giraffes stand like sculptures. The animals remain, indifferent to your empire's collapse. A guard should be here. The log shows the last check at midnight. Nothing since. You watch the hippos. You remember bringing them here. Helicopters lifting enormous crates over mountains. Everyone said you were crazy. Too expensive. Too impractical. But you did it because you could. Because Pablo Escobar doesn't accept limitations. The hippos have thrived. Breed spread into local rivers. Long after you're gone, they'll remain, a permanent mark on the landscape. But is that legacy or invasion, achievement or violence? You think about Roberto, your brother, alive somewhere, far from this chaos. He was always smarter. He knew when to step back. He manages money from a distance, no fortresses, no armed guards, no exotic animals. He chose differently. What would he say, seeing you now? Standing alone, holding a gun, haunted by phantom dogs, abandoned by everyone. He'd shake his head. Pablo, what did you expect? You'd have no answer. You did expect this. Every empire falls, every king gets deposed. You've seen it happen to others, rivals who got too big, too visible. You watched them fall and told yourself you were different. But you weren't. You were just later. The barking starts again. You don't flinch. The sound comes from everywhere. Trees, buildings inside your chest. 3 barks. Pause. 2 barks. The pattern repeats. You close your eyes and listen. Really listen. Understanding comes slowly. It's not code, not a message. The barking is just sound. Persistent. Unavoidable. Present. Like guilt. Like memory. Like consequences. It doesn't need meaning. It just needs to be there. Constant and inescapable. The sun is fully up now. Golden morning light. The compound looks beautiful. Paradise manufactured at enormous cost. but paradise is empty. Animals remain, but people have gone. You've built a kingdom and discovered too late that kingdoms require subjects. When they leave, you're just a man with a gun in a nice prison. You walk back toward the house, your feet hurt, your body aches, the barking follows. It's your companion now. Maybe it always has been. You just couldn't hear it before over the business, the violence, the Empire's machinery. Inside, the house receives you like a tomb receives a body. Inevitable, final, patient. The door closes. The sound echoes through empty rooms. The barking continues. Constant as a heartbeat. Eternal as guilt. Inescapable as truth. You're alone now. Truly alone. No guards, no staff, no family who will wake. Just you and your fortress and the sound of dogs that might not exist barking at threats that definitely do. You reach your office. Monitors show empty grounds, quiet buildings, the main gate unguarded. You pull out paper and pen. A confession? A will? A letter explaining things you've never said? The pen hovers. No words come. What is there to say that the barking hasn't already communicated? Then you hear them. Real sounds. Vehicles approaching. Multiple engines loud in the morning quiet. You move to the window. Down the driveway, a convoy. 6 vehicles, maybe more. They're not subtle. Driving to your gate like they own the place. Police, military, maybe American agents. The operation you've been dreading. The final move in a chess game that's been playing for years. The convoy reaches the gate. Men pour out. Dozens. Heavily armed tactical gear. They position themselves with precision. These aren't corrupt local cops. These are specialists, hunters. You watch them work. Part of you is fascinated by their coordination. They're good at this. They've practiced. The gate is sturdy, steel reinforced, electronically locked. But they have tools. They'll be through in minutes. You could run. The house has escape routes, tunnels built for this scenario. You could be in the jungle before they breach. But you don't move. You stand at the window, gun in hand, watching them come. And underneath the fear and adrenaline, you feel something unexpected. Relief. The waiting is over. The debt is being collected. The story is reaching its conclusion. You don't have to pretend anymore that this could end any other way. The barking has stopped. For the first time all night, there's silence. Real silence. Not purchased, not enforced. Just absence of sound. Like even the ghosts have stepped back to watch. You check your gun, fully loaded, 1 extra magazine, 31 rounds against dozens of armed men. The math isn't complicated. But Pablo Escobar doesn't surrender. Pablo Escobar doesn't go quietly. You said it yourself once. Better a tomb in Colombia than a cell in America. You meant it. You still mean it. You turn from the window and walk toward the stairs. There's one last thing you need to do.